Hello, I'm Michael Wybrow, and in this video I'm going to have a look at compositional layout for collection views and see how you can do some really powerful things with just a little bit of code. So, this was something I wanted to explore in the workshops this week. I rushed through it in the first workshop after we had technical problems, and I got a bit of time to explore it in the second workshop, but I'll take it a little bit further too, and then provide the code. So first off we have an example that's based on the app I did with the movie posters some time ago, or the movie entries I should say. And we had a list of movies for 3 years where each of them had a title, an overview, a release date, and a post URL. And the post URL is just an image for the poster. So this is a table view, and the table view looks kind of like you'd expect. It has some code here that we have seen before that splits this one-dimensional array of movies into a two-dimensional array with 3 entries, one for each year, that has the array of movies for that year. Then in the past examples I had it so that it was downloading each poster on demand as it displayed that movie. I've changed this one so that it preloads all of the movies, or at least downloads all of the movie posters when it first launches. So that's what this for loop does, and particularly we want this bit which checks the entry for the poster and checks there is a valid URL. If it does, it gets the last path component. So the last path component is if this is a URL, then the last path component is this bit. And this is useful to us because this is a unique file name for each of the movie posters. So you can see the last path element there. So we get the last path element, and then we get the cache directory. And to get the cache directory, this is like when we worked with the home directory. It's just a directory. It's a cache. What that means is that it can be used to cache information, but if the device gets low on memory, iOS will purge it and delete everything in there. So you should put things there that you want to save the user from downloading, but that could be re-downloaded if the device was to get really low on memory. So this is the perfect place to put our poster images. So what we're doing is we're getting the last path component, we're appending it onto the end of our cache directory, so then we have the unique file name for the poster in the cache directory. We check if the file exists there. If it does, then it's cached. It's already downloaded, we do nothing. If it isn't, we need to download it, and we do that via a download task, which we spawn an async download task. So we used data tasks in the past. The difference here is download task saves the thing to a file, and what we get back from it, instead of being data, is a URL, and that is the URL that it has temporarily. So when you launch the app again, that file won't be there, so you have to do something with it. So what we do is we move it from the temporary URL to the local URL, which is the one in the cache directory. And we just print a message here to say that we've downloaded it. When that's done, when the poster has updated, we tell the table view to reload. And the rest of this looks like you would expect. There's a number of sections, number of movies in each section, self-erode index path, and some header text that's displayed for each section. And that's our table view. And we're not actually using that, but I've included the code here for comparison. What we've done is, or what I've done is, I've replaced the table view with a collection view. We still have our movie detail view here. And in the table view, to get a table view, to get a collection view, I should say, all you do is find a collection view and drag it onto your storyboard, and you can set a custom class for it. it will have, we can select the collection view itself. It will have a number of items, which are like the number of cells, so you can create custom items if you wish. We're just going to have one, well, we've only got one, I should say, over here. If you want, you can have a section header and a section footer and define views for those. So this was a blank one, we're just going to lose that. Okay, so let's have a look at the collection view controller. It looks pretty much the same as our table view controller. Instead, it inherits from UI collection view controller. We have our same cache directory property. We have our exact same code in view did load, and in view did appear we have the exact same code we use for checking if the poster is downloaded, if it's not, to download it. The only difference in this code is that instead of telling the table view to reload, here we're telling the collection view to reload items at the particular index path for that poster. The rest of the collection view data source methods look very similar to the table view data source methods. You still have a number of sections, except it's in collection view. We have collection view number of items in section instead of table view number of rows in section, but it's the same concept, and we return the number of movies in a particular year. We have cell for item at index path as opposed to cell for row at index path. We still DQ reusable cells, they still have cell identifiers. The only difference is that our cell here is a poster collection table view cell, and we can see here it just has a single image view, and we could have a look in the storyboard, and indeed there is our image view inside a cell. It has 4 constraints, each that set it to be exactly equal to the left, top, right and bottom of its content view, and then we have a couple of redundant constraints. But we have 2 constraints, one that says the height of this cell is 150 pixels and the width is 100, so it's 2 by 3 in terms of aspect ratio. So once we've got the cell, we get the movie. If there's a poster image for this movie, we get its file name. We get its file name within the cache directory, and we load it and save it to the image view. And that's pretty much all there is to it. This code is a little different. In collection views, you can pretty much define header views and footer views as their own thing with their own layout and their own UI components. So in this case, we've got a custom header cell. It inherits from UI collection reusable view. It has a single label that I put onto the into the header view, and I've created a custom class for this header view, which we can see here, header view collection reusable layout, reusable view, sorry. And it has an identifier, which is header view, and in this custom class it has a single outlet, so we can refer to the label. So if we look at this code, it DQs a supplementary view with the reuse identifier header view that I just showed you. We cast it to the necessary type so we can use its custom property, the text view, and we set the year into that text view and return it. So that's all that's going on there. We have a prepare for segue method. It matches what was in the table view, and that's because in our storyboard we've set it up so that we have a segue to the detail view, and it happens when the user clicks on one of the items in the collection view. So let's run this and have a look at it. If I run it, It's going to appear here. When it launches, in a moment we see the images get pulled in. You can see lots of messages saying downloaded, and if I was to quit it and run it again, they're all already downloaded. So you can see the caching in action. You can also see they appear in all kinds of different orders, even though they're requested in order. The web server responds, and some of them will be different sizes and some of them will take different times. One thing to note is they all have fixed size, which is not really what we want for collection views. So if we turn the device sideways, we've now got 20 things wide here. Oh, not 20. What do we say? 7. And here we just have 3. So that's the collection view. I'm not going to change any of the code of that. We can fix up these constraints probably. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these 2 constraints on my image view, the ones that set a width and a height. So now their width and height are going to be determined by the collection view. And we're going to use what's called compositional layout. And I probably should have done this first, but let me just load Apple's web page on compositional layout. Actually, I do not have this, but we can search for it. Collection view, compositional. Okay. All right, so this is Apple's very brief introduction to compositional layout. And the idea is that, as it says, it's a kind of collection view layout. It's designed to be composable, flexible and fast. So what it means by composable is you define what's within a section, you define the groups within a section, then you define what the items are within the section, and you define their sizes and layout and some of their properties in terms of scrolling. And then it handles all of the actual logic to make that happen. So here's just briefly a basic layout. We have a compositional layout, which is defined by a section, which is one of these UI collection layouts. That describes a group, basically the purple thing here. So a group can be multiple items, or it can just be a single item in this top one. And here our group has a size, which is a fractional width of 1. So that's the container it's within. So the group's container is the section, which is the width of the screen. So fractional width of 1 says it's the width of the screen. And absolute width of 44 says it has a height of 44. So it's not relative to the screen, it's absolute, and that's usually the height of a table view cell. So this looks like the code here is for a basic kind of table view cell. So then we have the items within the group, and here we have an item being the fractional width of its container, which is the group, times by 1, so it is the same width as the container, and its height is the same as the container. So you can imagine this code is basically going to do a table view cell, and I guess I could kind of draw what that would look like. You can imagine that the group here is this size. It's got 1 times the width, and then it's got a height of 44. Then within this, we have an item which is pretty much going to be the same size because it's 1 times the width and 1 times the height. Alright, so let's have a look at this. I'm going to go back into my code here. And what we're going to do first is do a kind of tiling. But we'll do this tiling so that it fills the screen and the movie posters are always 3 wide. So, what does this look like? Well, we are going to have some code that looks kind of like this. So let's go into our collection view. We are going to set a new method here. And I'm going to call this configure layout, and it's going to return, I can type, UI collection view layout. And we're going to put some code here for this. And if we have a look at this code, we're going to need a header defined, which I'll put up here. Alright, so let's work our way through this code. And because it's composed, we'll kind of do it backwards. So we're returning a compositional layout, and that's made up of a section. So what does one of our sections look like here? Well, one of our sections is made up of the width being 1 times the width of its container, which is the screen, and or the collection view, which is the size of the screen, and its height being half times the width. So it's not based on the height of the collection view, it's based on the width. So what does this, well, okay, maybe let's have a look at then what the poster is within this. So then we have within that, we have a poster size, which is 1/3 of the width. So we can imagine fitting 3 on the screen, side by side. And the height dimension is going to be half of the width of the screen. Or in this case, we could just make this fractional height times by 1. Because these movie posters are 2 by 3. So if we wanted to have 3 of them wide, if you turn them sideways, you would only fit the 2. And as a result, the height of one of these rows should be half of the screen in order to fit 3 exactly side by side. So we'll do this and just draw it, because that will be helpful. Oops. Sorry, I'm wondering where my... weird. Let's try that again. Okay, there we go. So let's just draw this. Here's the group. So we said that a group was the width of the screen, so the fractional width times 1, and the height was half of the width of the screen. So we've got 1 times width and half times width. Then, in terms of the items within here, we've got third of the width of the blue thing, and then we've got 1 times the height of the blue thing. And you can imagine then, if we've got 1 there, we can fit another one here, and we have another one here. Right, so that's pretty much what we're going to get. And if the device was sideways, we'll get exactly the same thing. So let's have a look at this. Alright, so we've got our configure layout. We've also defined the header, and the header turns out to just be an, it's going to be the label that is the whole width of the screen, and then an absolute of 40 pixels. And we just say that this is a header, it's a header, and it's got an alignment of top. Alright, okay, to use our configure layout here, it's just a matter of doing collection view set layout, collection view layout. We give it our layout, which comes from our configure layout method, and we say whether it's animated. Because this is in the view did load and it's not yet visible, I'm going to say false. And when we run this, we should have our posters laid out with compositional layout. So you can see we have basically, here's a group. It's got 3 posters wide. There's a little bit of padding, which are these values here. If you wanted to, you could change one of these to 20. And as we scroll down, we can see the values, or rather the posters all laid out. So let's just change the top edge for a second here, just to see. We get some extra padding. It's not clear from the posters because they keep the aspect ratio exactly what size the cells are. So I'm just going to come into the cells and set this image view to have a background color. And when I do, or the image view, you're going to see what the size of the image view is. So you can see this padding up the top. Alright, so let's go back in here. Let's change this 20 back. And very simply, if we wanted to add scrolling behavior to this, we could. We can tell the section layout and give it a scrolling, orthogonal scrolling behavior. And we can set this to a couple of different things. We could say grouped paging, in which case a group is 3 posters, so it will scroll by groups of 3. So we can do that. So now we have horizontal scrolling things. If we wanted continuous scrolling, we could do that. Where it doesn't snap to a particular one of these. And obviously, as we said, if we comment this out, then it just displays them as a block. It puts them like this. Okay, so let's look at a couple of other examples. So I was going to do, let's say 3 or maybe 4 of these. We've just done this tile style, but let's put a couple of constants up here. And sorry, it's just adjusting my headset. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is let's change it so that we say style is an int, and it's one of these styles we just had. So I'm going to do a couple of different ones here, and I'm going to say if style is equal to wide, no tile, that's the one we're doing here, then we'll do this. The headers are going to be, I'm just going to use the same header for these different styles. So let's put that here. Let's have a base case, which is just return UI collection view layout. And let's create another one of these. That's if style is equal to wide. Let's do this side scrolling one first. And for the side scrolling one, I'm going to do something similar to what we did with the group paging, but show you how it doesn't have to exactly fit what's on screen. This is quite common in lots of apps, where here we're going to make it so that it scrolls by just one poster at a time. So we're still using grouped paging, but the groups are going to be a different size. So if we have a look, our group here is going to be 2/3 of the width of the screen, and we know that the poster is 2 by 3. So if it's 2/3 the width of the screen, then its height will be the full width of the screen. So and I'm just using numbers that kind of work with the screen size. Here, so with the fractional width, you can imagine a poster kind of going from here to here, and then its height is going to be down to there. So that's the size that our movie poster is going to be, basically 4 of these ones that you have here. Okay, so what does it look like? So that's our group size, and then our individual poster size is just the fractional width times 1 and the fractional height times 1. So it exactly fits that group. So if I was to draw this in here, which doesn't like it the first time, well, let's go in. Our group size is going to be this, where it's 2/3 the width and then 1 times the width. And then the item size is literally going to be like this. Okay, so let's have a look at what that looks like. We can go in here, and I'm going to change it so that this is passed to style, and I'm going to give it side scrolling. And now you can see the posters are this size. It scrolls by a group, which is 1. I can also, if I want to, change this to group paging centered, and then it's going to center them here. So you can see how you get quite powerful different examples of this. I'll leave some of these ones commented out so you can kind of see the difference. Okay, and then let's do a final one, which I'm calling wide, else if style is equal to wide. And here the idea is to do something just like a table view cell, basically. And what we're going to do here is just make the poster width be the exact width of the screen. So it'll look like this. So this times the fractional width is 1, because it's 2 by 3, the height becomes 1.5 times the width, and then in terms of the container we're in, the poster is just going to be the exact size of the group. So again, this would be expressed a lot better if I did it as fractional height times 1. Alright, so we can have a look at that. now you can see that it is a bit just like a table view. Now, one of the things that people asked in the first workshop, or someone asked after the first workshop when we were finished, but it's a nice example that I hadn't thought of doing, is just showing how we can modify our cell to have some text in it. And that's not too hard. We can come in here and we can find our cell. Here's our cell. I'm just going to expand it a little bit to see what's going on. Oh, it's interesting. Did I set the cell to be purple? Apparently I set the content view to be purple. That isn't what I meant to do. I meant to set the image view to be purple, but they're constrained to be the same thing, so not that different. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete the constraint at the bottom. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to add a label. I'm going to put this label here. I'm going to constrain the label to the thing above, the thing below. Let's just do 6 in every direction, left and right. Right, so the label is going to be pinned to this, pinned to the bottom, pinned to here, pinned to here. So we still have something that's going to be here on all sides. So we'll do that. And I can shrink this poster cell back down if I want to. I'm going to set the label size to be a little smaller. Oops. That's not the label, that's the content view. Label, and let's set it to be caption 1 size, so a bit smaller. Now, I should be able to run this and see the label, but I don't. So this is interesting. This is something I saw in the lab class. We might need to give a height, no, the lab class, the workshop. Give a height to this. So I'm just going to set its height. And then if I run this, see we have a label here. So I'm going to center the label and run it again. So this is centered. Now what I'm going to do is go into my, I'm going to add an outlet for this first of all. So let's come in here and open the assistant. We will select our cell, and I'm just going to select the label here and create an outlet. And let's call this title label. So here it is. So now we can refer to the label and we can set the name of the movie on this. So I'll go into the cell for row, or cell for item at index, which is down here. And we should be able to say cell dot title. Interesting, it's not showing up, so I've done something wrong. I've got a title label here, but I've got some problem. Oh no, okay, now it's come good. Don't know why I didn't notice that for a second. And we can say movie and give it the title. So if I do this, should be we now have titles on this, and you can see we have it for this one, we have it for this one, we have it for this one. And if I change the collection view layout, all of that should still work, even though we've got our custom cell that now has a title in it. So we can change the style to be tile. Okay, so you can see that working. I'm going to turn off, you can see what happens with the movie posters, keeping that aspect ratio. So I'm going to turn off the purple background just so it looks better. And we might change it so that it does aspect fill, just so it fills the whole space that we have for the movie posters. All right, so what I'd like to do now is just add a segmented control so we can see how we can flip between these. So in here I'm going to drop a segmented control onto my title bar, and we had tile, side scrolling and wide, so I'm going to come in here and set tile side scrolling and the final one will be wide. Okay, and let's add a action, and our action can be when this is clicked. Oh no, I'm on the navigation item, let's not do that. Let's be on the segmented control. So we create an action and call this layout changed. And in here what we're going to do is we're going to ask the collection view to change its layout. And to do that we can do this, and here for the style I'm going to do it based on the segmented control. So we have that's the sender here, so let's actually rename that segmented control and make this type the UI segmented control. Then we can access its property, and in here we can say segmented control dot selected segment index, and we can run this. And now I should be able to click here and have it switch between some of these. You'll notice some of them come up blank. This seems to be a bug in UIKit. So what I've found is that we can say collection view and ask it to reload its data after this. And this is just working around a bug. And when we do this, we should find that we can tap here, get this layout, change it to wide, get this layout, and change it to the tile and see this one. And in fact, you can even mix these layout styles. So I could also do this. I might end up with a bit of duplication of code, but the basic idea behind it is when we create a compositional layout like this, there's a few different initializers for it. One is where you just have a single section. One is where you have a section provider, and the section provider is literally just a closure, and the closure gets given a section and an environment. And from this you can return different versions depending on the section. So if we were in section 0, we could return this section layout. If we were in section 1, we could return this section layout, and if we were in section 2, we could return this section layout. And therefore each of our 3 sections of the table view would have different things. So let's do this because I guess it would be fun and not too hard. So what I'm going to do is just come in here, select my segmented control. Let's add a 4th thing to the segmented control and call it mix. So we now have our 4th one, which is mix. And with the mix, let's create something here. Call that style mix equals 3. And down here, what I'm going to do is let's say else if style is equal to mix, then we'll do this one that I just mentioned. I'll refactor this a little bit before I put it up on Moodle, but this version will look like that. Sorry, that shouldn't be there. It should be here. Yeah, okay. So conceptually, all we want to do is have some logic in our closure here that says if section 1 do one thing, if section 2 do another. So I'm actually going to take all of this code and I'm just going to copy it and adapt it. So let's put it in here. And everywhere I've got style, I'm going to change it to section, which is here and here and here and here. And then what we need to return in this closure is, given the section, give back the section layout. So here we're trying to return a full compositional layout. We're not doing that, we're just returning a section. So what we need to return is section layout from each of these things. So I'll return, I don't know why my copy and paste isn't working. There we go. And here we go. Let's make these constants not be part of the class, because then we don't need to capture them, they can just be. Okay, let's have a look at this. It failed. What did we miss? Missing return in closure. Alright, for the last one, let's just make it do that one. And run. Okay, so now we've got our tile version with our different sections all the same, our side scrolling with our different sections all the same, our wide and our mix. And with the mix we should have the first one be tile, the second one be the side scroll, and the last one be our wide one. So you can see how you can mix and match within a table view. And yeah, if I click on any of these in any of the versions, then I go and find the details for that. So thanks for watching. Please see the code on Moodle. If you do have any questions about how to do anything within these compositional layouts and table views, please ask on the forums and we can provide some additional advice. But it's very powerful and useful to be able to create layouts like this.